Okay, let's set the scene. San Francisco, the Grand Hyatt. Supposed to be a wedding night, right? Pure celebration.
Absolutely. Champagne, romance, the whole deal.
But instead, first responders walk into just a nightmare. The newlyweds, Melanie and David Brandt, murdered.
It's incredibly jarring.
Yeah,
That kind of violence, I mean, crashing into what should be a symbol of joy.
yeah, it just feels fundamentally wrong, doesn't it? Violates every expectation.
Totally. Weddings are about hope, new starts,
Mm-hmm.
savagery like that. In that context, it just makes you ask why immediately.
And that feeling, that deep unsettling why. That's really where we're starting this deep dive. You, our listener, sent over some really compelling sources on this case.
hmm
And our mission today is basically to unpack all of it, pull out the key insights, and, well, try to make some sense out of that initial chaos.
Because right away there were these really strange details.
Yeah, details that felt almost out of place, like they didn't belong in a standard crime scene.
Almost deliberately odd, you could say.
Exactly. You've got this violence that feels, I don't know, both really personal, but also kind of random.
And then the champagne.
Right. This
Yeah.
gift-wrapped bottle of, like, super expensive Krug champagne.
And the killer takes the groom's tux jacket.
But leaves behind all this valuable jewelry. It doesn't add up neatly, does it?
No, it really doesn't. It
Yeah.
strongly suggests that, robbery wasn't the main thing here.
Which is often a driver in these kinds of violent crimes.
Right. So this points towards something maybe more complex, maybe psychological.
And that's probably what grabbed your attention in the sources, just like it did for the investigators back then. You're trying to get behind the why.
Why the violence? Why these weird, almost performative details?
Exactly. So we're here to help cut through that fog and find the threads that actually matter. Okay, let's dive into that unsettling scene.
So the immediate aftermath. You've got the investigation kicking off right there at the scene. Inspector Lindsay Boxer arrives. And her initial observations, and that's really where the story of trying to understand this begins.
Right. And Boxer, she's experienced, she sees immediately what wasn't taken.
The diamonds.
Yeah, the bride's big diamond ring, expensive earrings, is just left there.
Which, like you said, pushes robbery way down the list of motives pretty quickly.
But then the medical examiner's findings add this other, really disturbing layer.
Yeah, 3 stab wounds on Melanie, the bride. That suggests she fought back.
Right, a struggle. But David, the groom, just a single fatal wound.
And then there's that detail about him. The ME's report noted he'd involuntarily urinated,
Oh, wow.
which physiologically that often signals just extreme, overwhelming fear.
Paints a horrible picture of his last moments, just sheer
It
terror.
really does.
So, okay, it wasn't the jewelry. The groom was terrified. Boxer's thinking maybe. Passion, like a sudden fight, jealousy gone wrong.
That's a natural avenue to explore.
But like we said, those other details, they don't quite fit that either, do they?
No, and that's where the champagne bottle is so weirdly significant.
Yeah, tell us about that again. It wasn't just any champagne.
No, it was Krug Close to Ms. Nil, 1989. I mean, seriously exclusive, very expensive stuff.
And it was gift wrapped.
Gift wrapped, and it had blood spatter on it, so it was definitely there during the murders.
It's such a clash, isn't it? Like Boxer notes, it suggests good taste from someone who just did something incredibly brutal.
It's like a bizarre calling card. What message is that supposed to send?
Yeah, was it manipulation? Did it mean something specific to the killer or maybe the victims? It feels like it's more than just a random item.
Absolutely. It pushes you beyond just the functional aspects of the crime.
And then there's the jacket, the missing tuxedo jacket.
Right. The groom's jacket is gone, but his pants are still there.
Boxer and her partner, Jacoby, they were just completely stumped by this.
Yeah, the sources say they were baffled. And get this, the slash mark on the jacket doesn't even line up perfectly with the fatal wound.
Seriously?
Yeah, and apparently the jacket and pants weren't even from the same designer.
Okay, that's just odd. That really knocks out the simple idea of just taking it because it was bloodied.
Exactly. It feels more deliberate, maybe symbolic even. Who knows at this point?
So right here, the investigation starts to shift gears. The media jumps all over it.
Oh yeah, Wedding Night Massacre at Hyatt. Big headlines.
Huge attention. The mayor gets involved personally. And that changes things for Boxer.
Well, in these huge cases, the pressure to get answers like now is immense. Public outcry, politicians watching.
Right. So her boss, Lieutenant Roth, nicknamed Cheery, ironically,
Yeah,
he brings in a new partner for Boxer, Chris Raleigh.
which is a big deal because she'd worked closely with Jacoby for 2 years.
Yeah, the sources definitely show Boxer was skeptical. Raleigh's from a quieter precinct, and him being assigned just felt a bit too convenient, maybe.
Creates that little bit of friction, you know? Is he really there to help, or is it politics because the case is so hot?
And adding to the mess is the media frenzy, especially this one reporter, Cindy Thomas.
Ah, yes, the determined reporter.
Determined is one word for it.
Yeah.
The sources say she somehow got unauthorized access to the crime scene. Just relentless.
That's always a tension, isn't it? Cops trying to investigate, media needing the story. And it means leaks are possible.
It's actually Cindy Thomas who digs up a really crucial early lead.
Oh, interesting. What was it?
She finds out about the groom's father, Gerald Brandt. Apparently he had some business dealings with a Russian car company, Koya-Novgorod.
Okay.
And the story was that maybe some big last-minute deal fell apart.
Ah, okay. So that suddenly opens up a whole different kind of motive, right? Beyond just personal stuff.
Exactly. It lines up with some early media buzz, even got the FBI interested. International business, big money.
Could be financial disputes, maybe even organized crime links. Lots of possibilities there.
Though it's important, the father, Gerald Brandt, he denied any deals went sour.
Right, so you have conflicting information already. Typical early stages.
So yeah, in those first few chaotic hours, you've got this crazy mix. Violence that feels both intimate and weirdly staged, maybe a link to Russian business deals, and these bizarre clues like the fancy champagne and the missing jacket, a real puzzle.
And just as they're grappling with that puzzle, the story takes an even darker turn. News comes in of a second double homicide.
Oh, man.
Newlyweds again. Michael and Becky DeGeorge, found murdered in Napa Valley.
Napa Valley, another romantic setting turned into a horror scene.
The parallels are immediate and chilling, aren't they? Young couple, just married, idyllic location, violent death.
Yeah, it instantly raises that awful possibility. Is this a serial killer, someone targeting newlyweds specifically?
And a key detail emerges in the DeGeorge case involving a limousine.
A limo? How so?
Well, the couple took a limo to dinner, and then they just disappeared. The car was found later back at their hotel, but Michael and Becky were gone until they were found murdered, of course.
Okay, so the limo. That could be how the killer interacted with them, maybe? Or abducted them without raising alarms right away.
It's definitely significant. If it's the same killer, the limo might be part of their method, their MO.
And Boxer's intuition, her gut feeling, starts leaning towards the idea that the killer actually knew the victims in both cases.
Which shifts things, doesn't it? Away from random attacks towards something more targeted, more personal, even if the why is still completely obscure.
Yeah, the pattern itself becomes disturbing. Newlyweds, happy occasions, targeted.
And that stolen jacket from the Brandt killing. Boxer and Raleigh are still chewing on that one.
Still trying to figure out the why. Was it just panic, grab the wrong thing?
Or something more calculated, something psychological. The lack of a simple, practical reason keeps it nagging at them. It's a flag.
Okay, so two couples murdered, chilling similarities. And then a detail from the first wedding, the Brandt wedding, suddenly becomes potentially huge.
What was that?
A witness, a guest named Lori Birnbaum. She remembers seeing a man with a beard, acting kind of suspicious at the reception.
Huh. You know, at a big wedding, lots of faces, that might seem minor at first.
Right, easily dismissed. But now, with a possible serial killer targeting weddings, suddenly that beard seems important.
Any detail can become critical in that context.
And then, horrifyingly, it happens again, a third double murder, this time in Cleveland.
Cleveland. Wow, so across state lines now.
Yeah. Kathy and James Voskuhl, killed at their wedding reception, held at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame of all places.
Good grief. The pattern is undeniable now. Newlyweds, wedding setting. It screams serial killer.
The geographical jump is big, though. Means the killer is mobile or has connections in different cities, really widens the search.
Makes it much harder.
But here's another wrinkle. The weapon used in Napa and Cleveland was apparently a 9mm handgun.
Wait, but the Brandts were stabbed, right?
Exactly. So different MO. Is it one killer who changed weapons? Or could there be two people involved? Or more? It just adds another layer of confusion.
Yeah, that forces investigators to keep multiple theories alive. Did they evolve? Get different weapons? Or is it somehow connected but different perpetrators?
But then, the beard. Remember Lori Birnbaum?
From the first wedding, yeah.
After she hears about the Cleveland murders, her memory of that bearded guy at the Brandt wedding gets sharper, more vivid in her mind.
So it connects San Francisco and Cleveland in her mind, and therefore in Boxer's.
Yes. And crucially, they check security footage from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And they find him. A man matching the description is visible on the footage.
Wow. Okay, that's huge. A visual link between two of the crime scenes gives them something concrete to look for.
So the investigation gets a jolt, and then they find out something about Kathy Voskuhl, the Cleveland bride.
What about her?
Turns out, according to her friend Meryl Shortley, Kathy used to date someone in San Francisco. An older guy, married, a big shot.
The San Francisco connection for the Cleveland victim.
Okay.
Now we're potentially tying all three cases together, maybe through this link.
It really focuses the investigation back towards San Francisco, doesn't it? And then Boxer makes this really disturbing discovery.
Yeah.
A novel. It's called Lion's Share, written by an author named Nicholas Jenks.
Okay. And what's the book about?
Get this. It's about tragic husbands and wives who go around murdering happy, innocent couples.
Oh, come on. Seriously.
Yeah. The plot is chillingly similar to the actual murders.
Wow. Okay, that's more than a coincidence. That puts this author, Nicholas Jenks, right under the spotlight. Is he inspired by the crimes or?
Or maybe involved. The connections start piling up fast. Turns out Jenks actually attended Kathy Voskuhl's wedding in Cleveland.
He was at the wedding.
Yeah, there are even photos of him with her. And phone records show they were in contact right before she was killed.
Okay, so he's not just some author with a weirdly relevant book. He has direct links to victim number 3.
And remember the champagne, the expensive Krug.
Yeah.
They trace it back to an auction. And guess who was a known bidder at those kinds of auctions?
Let me guess. Nicholas Jenks.
Bingo. And there's more. He invested in a vineyard. Sparrow Ridge Vineyards, guess where it's located?
Near Napa, where the Georges disappeared.
Not far at all.
Okay, the picture's getting pretty dark around Jenks now. Means motive,
Yeah.
maybe, opportunity, connection.
And then his ex-wife comes into the picture, Joanna Wade.
Ah, the ex. Standard procedure to check them out.
Right. Turns out they had a really bitter divorce. So maybe she has a motive for revenge against Jenks, though not immediately seen as the killer of the couples.
Okay, so she's on the radar,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe as someone with an axe to grind against Jenks, not necessarily the newlywed killer. Got it.
But just when it feels like the case is zeroing in on Jenks, things get complicated. Again,
Also,
he gives an alibi for the Cleveland murders, says he was at his hotel writing.
solid alibi.
Seems solid at first, but then it starts to fall apart when they dig into it.
Uh-huh. A false alibi. That's usually not a good sign for the suspect.
No kidding. And he's sticking to his story. I'm innocent. I'm being framed.
Right. Even when the alibi collapses, he claims setup.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And Cindy Thomas, the reporter, she strikes again.
Yeah.
She digs up an unpublished manuscript by Jenks, title, Always a Bridesmaid.
Always a bridesmaid. Seriously. Okay, that's even more direct. An unpublished work suggests it's maybe more personal, more obsessive, huge piece of evidence potentially.
Totally. And then chaos, there's an earthquake.
An earthquake. In the middle of all this.
Yep. And during the confusion, Jenks escapes custody.
He escapes. Oh, man. That's bad. Public safety risk investigation nightmare.
Big time. Huge urgency to find him now. But even with Jenks on the run, Boxer, her instincts are kicking in about something else.
Yeah. What's she thinking?
She starts looking harder at the ex-wife, Joanna Wade.
Okay, why her specifically now?
Well, think about access. Joanna knew Jenks's life inside out. His home, his stuff, maybe his specific taste in wine, even his clothes.
Access is key.
And Joanna worked at Saks Fifth Avenue. Remember Becky DeGeorge, the Napa victim? There was mention of a specific brooch during her bridal appointment. Maybe Joanna saw or heard something there.
Okay, that's plausible, connecting Joanna to victim 2.
Plus, that bitter divorce motive for revenge. What if she wasn't the killer, but maybe trying to frame Jenks for it all?
That's a twist. So Boxer's keeping an open mind, not just laser-focused on Jenks anymore.
Smart. And then the beard detail comes back, but with a new angle. Remember Lori Birnbaum's description? A man with an older-looking beard.
Right.
But she also said his demeanor seemed younger. The way he moved, maybe?
Okay.
What if the beard wasn't real? What if it was a disguise?
That contradictory detail suddenly makes a very different kind of sense. Someone pretending to be an older man with a beard.
Exactly. And then comes the science. DNA.
The clincher.
They find a hair on one of the victims. They test it. It's a match.
To Jenks.
To Jenks.
Okay. So even with the disguise theory, the DNA points right back at him.
But even confronted with that, Jenks still insists he's being framed. But he starts slipping up. He mentions this weird game he was playing with someone he calls Chessie.
Chessie. Who's Chessie? And what kind of game? That sounds ominous.
Totally. His story's starting to crack. The final act plays out at this location on Hyde Street.
What's there?
It's where Jenk said he was supposed to meet the real killer, the one framing him.
Okay, dramatic showdown time.
Well, they get there, and they find Joanna Wade's body. She's dead.
The ex-wife. Murdered.
Wow. But then, the real shocker. The real killer is revealed. It's Jenks's current wife, Chessie.
Chessie is the killer. His wife. The unassuming one.
She was the one in disguise, the beard, the whole thing. And they find the missing wedding rings, presented like some kind of sick, twisted renewal of vows between her and Jenks.
Good God. That's unbelievable. The wife.
Her motive, it was all about living out the twisted fantasies from Jenks's books. This horrifying mix of obsession, twisted love. She wanted to make his fiction real.
So she orchestrated the murders based on his novels.
That's what comes out. And Jenks, he eventually admits it. He planned the whole thing with her. The manipulation, the control. It's staggering.
Shared delusion. He wrote the script, and she acted it out. Horrifying.
And the sources mention the personal cost, too. You know, Boxer's dealing with her own health issues, the sheer emotional weight.
Of course.
And her partner, Chris Raleigh, he got injured during that final confrontation when they took down Chessie. It highlights the real danger involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget the human toll on the investigators in cases this brutal. It's immense.
So, wrapping up this deep dive, the core takeaway is just stunning, isn't it? The killer wasn't the obvious suspect, but the seemingly normal wife.
Yeah, driven by her husband's dark fiction. It's a chilling reminder about obsession and how much darkness can hide behind a normal facade.
It really makes you question appearances, doesn't it? That extreme violence can come from the most unexpected places.
Definitely.
And you're left with these really uncomfortable questions, like, what exactly pushed Chessie over that edge? How deep did Jenks' involvement really go? Did the fiction truly cause the reality?
Could a novel really inspire such meticulous, brutal crimes? Those are the questions that linger, the ones about the really dark corners of the human mind.
And for you listening, maybe this whole thing highlights the power of stories, of narratives, how they shape us, and sometimes how they can warp reality in terrifying ways. It really underscores why it's so important to look past the surface, to trust your gut when something feels deeply wrong, like Boxer eventually did to unravel this whole thing.
It's a sobering thought, how the stories we let in can influence not just our thoughts, but our actions too, sometimes with devastating results.
And maybe the final thought to leave you with is just, sometimes the most unbelievable stories, the ones that sound like pure fiction, they turn out to be the most terrifyingly true.
Yeah, something to definitely think about long after this is over.